I think you're going to see very, very inconsistent job reports. But the bottom line is the unemployment rate is at over 10%. The real unemployment rate closer to 14, 15%. You have this letter from CEOs to Congress. A lot more small businesses will fail without new aid. So top executives of more than 100 companies, including Starbucks, Microsoft, and MasterCard, and trade groups are now calling on Congress to backstop small businesses facing economic calamity. In a letter dated Monday and addressed to congressional leaders of both parties, the executives painted a dire picture: mass business closures as coronavirus cases surge and the recession deepens. The effort, spearheaded by former Starbucks executive Howard Schultz, calls for federally guaranteed loans to last into 2021, flexibility in how that money is put to use, and at least partial loan forgiveness for the hardest hit companies. It also said, quote, funds must flow to all small businesses in need, particularly those run by people of color. Okay. In spirit, I agree with this letter. I think we need to see who this money would be going to. Who would this money be going to? Because we know a lot of small businesses, a lot of money as part of the PPP program that was supposed to go to small businesses ended up going to titans of the United Corporations of America that did not need the money. But in principle, I do agree that we need more money for small businesses. Anecdotally, I can tell you, my parents own a small mom and pop retail store, a jewelry store. They're suffering. And a lot of other actual small businesses that have less than 50 employees, my parents probably have 5 or 6, are literally hanging off a cliff. Small businesses actually are the lifeblood of America. But the PPP program got, as usual, hijacked so that corporate Goliaths and major companies that could afford to take a hit, they got money, including, remember, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats put in their HEROES Act a provision that would allow PPP small business loans to go to K Street lobbyists. How's that for party of the working people? So let's move on to Shark Tank entrepreneur Kevin O'Leary. If you watch Shark Tank, he's the bald guy. He's actually Canadian, but he has major investments in American companies, other international companies. He ran for a position in Canada as a conservative. He lost. Let's take a look at Mr. Wonderful here. In April, what was Mr. Wonderful's position on the PPP program and small businesses getting PPP loans?
For companies that may not need it in the moment today, but maybe they think they need it later. Sort of, how do you think about that?
Well, I listened to Mark's comments. You know, I have a lot of respect for Mark. We've been working together for a decade, even longer, and we never agree on anything, and we don't agree on this either. You have a fiduciary responsibility when the government lays out a program to use it, because you have no idea how long this pandemic is going to go for, when or if there'll be therapeutics or a vaccine. You just don't know. And to say that you can give to a franchisee that has less than 500 or whatever the employee count is and not make sure the brain of the franchise business is kept intact, that's the HQ, makes no sense to me whatsoever.
So let me ask you a question. You have lots of different companies. And I wonder how many of them are trying to take the money and how many of them call you and say, hey, Kevin, you got a lot of money. Can you help me? I'd prefer to take your money than take the government money.
Yes, all of that's happening. First of all, the government money, and you've got to understand the unintended consequence of what that bill said. When it was signed a couple of Fridays ago when we read it, it was clear to me that the government asked you to take a snapshot of your payroll Feb 15th and another snapshot of your payroll on June 30. And if they're both the same or the June 30 number's higher, that loan can be forgiven. It's free helicopter money. So that changed the entire behavior of millions of businesses that were applying for it. And let me tell you the unintended consequence, which I find fascinating. We can't finance the payrolls of these companies during the period we're waiting for the actual check to come because we don't know if it's 5 or 6 or 8 weeks. We have no idea.
So Mr. Wonderful, this Shark Tank entrepreneur, in April, when all of this was starting, says companies have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders to get that PPP money, that small business loan money. when the CNBC anchor said to him, are you a multimillionaire with a huge portfolio of companies you invest in? Are you trying to get that PPP money? Absolutely, he said. He said, absolutely I am. And, by the way, other small business owners are asking me to lend them money. So, back in April, when this pandemic hit, he said, you have a fiduciary duty as any company to your shareholders to get government money. If the government wants to hand out money to you as a loan, that many of these PPP loans actually, through whatever the arithmetic and accounting is, became forgivable, where they weren't actual loans, they were just grants that you don't have to pay back. He basically says, let me just translate what fiduciary duty means. I have a responsibility as a corporate scumbag to try and get the free money for my shareholders. That's what he's saying. Okay? In April. That's what he said. Let's fast forward now. Let's look at him yesterday on CNBC, responding to Howard Schultz, the former Starbucks CEO, and other CEOs signing a letter saying the government needs to do more for small businesses.
I totally disagree. I think, first of all, Howard is an advocate of small business, and I appreciate that. And he's a rock star amongst the entrepreneurial community for caring about employees. It's always been part of his mantra and what he did in building Starbucks. But when we started this PPP program months and months and months ago, there was a lot we didn't know that we know now. And the American economy is going through a revolution, a digital transformation. There are going to be many, many winners and many, many losers. And at the end of the day, the one thing John and I can agree on is during this transition, we're going to displace a lot of employees, a lot of workers. We should support them, but let the actual change, this dynamic change occur, happen on its own and let the market be the market. I am, as you know, a huge advocate of small business. I have over 50 companies, small businesses that are private, I've invested in. At least 20 to 25% of them are going to fail because the world has changed on them. Consumers have changed. The way they buy things have changed. Where they go has changed. And we don't yet know what the world looks like on the other side of this pandemic. Assuming it's going back to what it was is an incorrect assumption because many things are going to be more efficient. And we can't pick the winners and losers anymore. That's what's changed in my mind over the last 5 months. I am a huge advocate for giving somewhere between $400 and $450 to employees, extending the unemployment, and then letting the market do price discovery on what it should fund and what it shouldn't. There's so many businesses that got money in the first PPP that shouldn't have got it at all because they are essentially zombie companies. They will never be successful. They will never be liquid. The world has changed on them. Why should I, as a taxpayer, fund that? Why not let the private markets come and support those that deserve it and let the others die as they do and should, because those assets will go through bankruptcy and be redeployed efficiently. I don't want to spend any more money guessing on winners and losers because Congress can't. There's nobody that can. Only the market can. And John knows that, and he has to admit that no one can pick winners and losers. Why should taxpayers be forced into these crammed down fundings? Makes no sense at all to me. And I'm an advocate for small business.
Mm-hmm. John, your response?
I'm speechless. First of all, I have enormous respect for Kevin and what he's accomplished. I find it interesting, I wasn't going to mention it, but 10% of the businesses that he started got PPP. I mean, 5 of his own companies 3 months ago got PPP loans. You can't just say we want affirmative action for rich people and everybody else is on your own. That is not the way it works. You can't. We are rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic here.
So let's be clear here. Let's be clear. Again, this is a Canadian, by the way. Kevin O'Leary is a Canadian investor. He has companies in America, has companies in other countries. He got his start, some tech software company he hit it big with. In April, when this started, Kevin O'Leary said, you as a small business owner or a corporate CEO have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders to get that government money. Okay? Then, him, a filthy rich multimillionaire who, frankly, can afford to have many of the companies he owns or invests in to go belly up. He says 20% of his companies might go belly up. Honestly, it won't even affect his bottom line that much. He's so filthy rich. After he got, 10 of his companies got PPP, small business loans. Again, this is a filthy rich man. His companies didn't need PPP, small business loan money. He got it. What did he call that? Government picking winners and losers? No. The government. We have to stop allowing the government to pick winners and losers after they gave me my money. After I got my money from the government and basically stole that money that should have went to an actual small business struggling. After I was rewarded by the government as a winner, the government chose me, Kevin O'Leary, a multimillionaire, as a winner. I'm good. Yeah, 20% of my businesses will go out. But the core ones that I requested PPP money, the real money makers, are good because we got that extra padding we didn't need. So, to the barber shops that got screwed and couldn't get that small business money because it went to Kevin O'Leary, to the small restaurant that couldn't get that PPP money, small sports arena, small hardware store, small whatever it was, that didn't get that money because the money went to Kevin O'Leary, a filthy multimillionaire who didn't need it. Then look at what he said here last week.
I have a lot of cash sitting around because I've been exiting other sectors. Where do I put it? I'm putting it back into Microsoft, putting it back into Facebook. Why? That's what's working. Not just for the momentum, if you want to invest on that basis. I don't. That's where money is being spent in this digital pivot. You know, I can now say I've got enough focus now after all these months, 20% of my small private portfolio is going to fail. It's going to fail. They're going to zero. They are in restaurants. They are in sports entertainment. They're anything doing, movie theaters, all that stuff, gyms, going to zero. I don't want to support them anymore, and I don't think the government should either. Let those guys die. They have to die because the consumer is moving into a different direction. But where the consumer is going is being empowered by the Facebooks, by the Microsofts, by all of these tech companies. Amazon, are you kidding? That's a must-have for any small business, 40% of their sales. So that trend remains intact. What's different from what we saw in March is I now know who the losers are, and the market does.
You know who the losers are? I guarantee you, if I dug in hard enough, there is at least one or two of Kevin O'Leary's small businesses that he is acting like he's so virtuous, let him fail, that are failing, are going to fail, in large part because they couldn't get that PPP money that he stole from them. You see how that works? This Neanderthal, this filthy shark, literally a shark, a deadly one, stole money from small businesses, got that money from the United Corporations of America, the federal government, that he didn't need. He literally stole money from, let's say, companies that were on Shark Tank that he invested in. Many of those companies are your literal small mom and pop business. I've seen, children on Shark Tank coming up with great ideas. They probably, indirectly or directly, couldn't get PPP money because a lot of that money, you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars, was being diverted to corporate America and plutocrats who don't need it, like Kevin O'Leary. And then he has the audacity to say, listen, I'm putting my money back into Facebook and Amazon and this and that. Oh, you mean the money you stole from the government? The PPP money that you got? Because you do like the government picking winners and losers, as long as it's you they're picking. Once you get chosen, you know, it's like in gym class, you remember? When there's like two captains and they go through picking each person and you're freaking out because you're like not getting chosen and you might be the last one and being embarrassed. Might have happened to me once or twice. He's cool as long as he's chosen first. Whatever happens to the other students, if they don't get chosen, that's fine. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.